Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Moon, she, her pronouns, a modern classroom expert mentor and elementary instructional coach and interventionist in Durham, North Carolina.
Hello, Facebook fam. I'm Tavia Klumendor. I teach high school science in Reedsville, North Carolina. I am also a modern classroom mentor and Facebook moderator.
We are so excited to be in the space with all of you. As a reminder, Tony Rose is no longer bringing her wonderfulness to the Facebook show, but you can catch her on the Modern Classrooms Project podcast every Sunday, whenever you get your podcast, and Monty will be back on the show after a short break.
Before we dive into today's topic, we want to give a shout out to all our new implementers. We love seeing you on this journey and are appreciative of your questions and willingness to share with us. For those of you that are new to our Facebook group, we celebrate 2 members a week. You both get a sticker, and a member of the month who gets a free t-shirt. Yay. These members are chosen because of their engagement, thought-provoking posts, and or sharing of resources. Thanks to all of you, and keep contributing. Okay, Sarah, so let's move on to our topic of the month, progress trackers.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get our presentation up. We have a very special presentation this time around because we actually got permission from a lot of our Facebook members, hopefully that are watching the show right now, to share about their progress trackers. So again, Monty, Tavia, and myself are so excited to be in this space with you. And this month, we're going to be talking about progress trackers, and specifically, how can we motivate and track progress while holding students accountable. And so as we know, Modern Classrooms movement has these 3 elements of that blended instruction, self-paced structure, and mastery-based grading. And both the Facebook show and our podcast are really focusing on this self-paced structure during season 1. So we're going to look at a couple of different progress trackers before we move into some of our questions. The first one is some that are student facing. So sometimes people call these personal progress trackers, individual progress tracker. Here's a great one from Kimberly. Again, thank you to all of our Facebook community members that allowed us to share this with them. And so you can see this was a really cool Hunger Games dystopian novel unit, and she set it up like a game board using these different types of lines as a must do, should do, and boss level, which is her aspired to do. Using the different sorts of lines can be a great way to ensure that all students, including students that might be colorblind, can really understand those classifications. Megan shared 2 of hers, one that is this like ELA different tracks with all those different parts of literacy. And then this is one of her math ones. Again, you can see that game board format that kiddos can go ahead and follow their progress with it. This is from Andrea. Thank you to Andrea for sharing out. Andrea was actually one of my mentees a while back, and now she's a DMCE and a mentor. And she always had the most gorgeous game boards that I could never even imagine making because I'm not this creative, but this is a super cool, like chutes and ladders sort of student facing progress tracker. This looks a little bit more like mine. Thank you to Stacy for sharing this out. Kiddos can definitely see what's those must do, what are those should do's and aspire to do's. And then thank you, Nicole, for sharing out this kind of, again, that checklist format, especially seeing those target dates right there.
Yeah, that was how mine looks. Mine looks more like.
Go ahead, Tavia. I want to go back to
I
it.
was just saying that mine looks like this one. This is how I do mine. And I highlight the lesson part from what should and aspire to do.
Yeah, absolutely. This next one is mine, and it looks a lot similar too. It was funny. Zach actually, he shared this as part of the podcast. And when he asked me if he could share it, he was like, this is so cool. And I was like, thank you so much for saying this, because this was on a day that I just could not come up with anything cool. And I was like, we're doing a checklist. So I'm really glad that somebody thought it was cool. Same with this. This is like a staircase format that I've used before. They're just boxes on Google Slides, but it can make it kind of cool for the students. And at the end of the day, the students are able to really see what are those must-dos, what are those should-dos, where are they now, and where do they need to be. We're going to go ahead and move into some public-facing trackers. Thanks, Evan, for sharing this one out. He has each of the blocks is a different lesson, and then those different colors are his different periods within the day. This is one from Kim. Thank you, Kim. She used up one of the whiteboards. Again, those different colors kind of showing her different blocks as the kiddos are moving along through those. Lindsay has this really cool like game board interactive one with these little, if you notice down here, they're like clothespins with the students' initials that then they can move along with the along with it. Looks like it is Tavia, the science teacher, might be able to help me here. Looks like it's a weathering and erosion unit. I think looks pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Looks super cool. And then OJ listed this one as a collaboration tracker, which is so great because this is a huge part of the progress trackers, right? That progress tracker is really about progress and also how can our kiddos collaborate, right? If I'm on lesson 2, I can't really collaborate with Tavia if she's on lesson 5, right? We're not at that same spot. But also if I'm at lesson 2 and I'm really struggling and maybe, I don't want to necessarily go ask the teacher, ask a friend first, I can see, oh, Tavia's already done this lesson. Maybe I can go ask her a question, right? And that's what's so, I think, powerful about the progress trackers because it's really setting those kiddos up for that organic collaboration. So that way they can kind of see where they are and who can help them and who can collaborate with them. Tavia, do you want to speak at all on how collaboration kind of looks with your classroom and progress trackers?
It's kind of the same way. I use the spreadsheet progress tracker that was on the website. So I put that up every day so everybody can kind of see where folks are. I'm actually going to move towards what OJ has here. I bought the cute little boards and the cute little organizational charts that I'm going to hang up so they can, it'll be something more visual because the spreadsheet they don't look at on their own. If I don't bring it up, they won't look at it. So I wanted to do something a little more physical for them. So it's kind of the same way. And sometimes I'll have to direct them, okay, well, more of the progress tracker will be more for me. And I'll be like, okay, well, Sally and Jessica have already done this. Go sit down and talk to them for a few minutes. They can help you come back. Those kind of things. So.
Yeah, and I love how you brought up the idea of, if the kiddos aren't using the progress tracker that is working for you, switching it up, right? Like maybe kiddos need to see that more physical element. Maybe kiddos need to see it. We have some implementers that the first thing kiddos see when they go to that LMS is that progress tracker, right? And it's just like you're saying as well, it's that explicit teaching of how to use the progress tracker. I did that a lot. When I taught 5th grade all subjects in a kind of petty way, I'll be the first to admit it. Somebody would ask me, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm like, man, if only there was like this document that would like show who you could work with and like ask questions, like, gosh, that would be so cool. I should make that one day. And they'd be like, I'll go check the progress tracker. I'm like, yes, you will, my darling. But yeah, it can really help. Also, this one, Rosie shared out with this one. This is a super cool progress tracker in my mind, because it's actually not tracking where they are within the lessons. It's tracking where they are on pace. So if kiddos are on pace, they're on the floor of Congress. If they're ahead of pace, they're headed to the White House. And if they're behind pace, they're stuck in committee. And I think this is such a cool way for kiddos to kind of see that pacing while also linking into, obviously, she's all about government. She is a social studies teacher, and we got a lot of traction with this on our Facebook group, and I'm glad that she was comfortable with us sharing it here too.
I remember seeing this one posted. I was like, wow, I wonder how that works. That looks really neat.
It is super cool. All right, so that was some awesome progress trackers shared from our community. Just like most of our Facebook shows, we're going to go ahead and talk about 3 of the the most commonly asked questions from our Facebook community. Tavia, you want to start us off with this first one?
Absolutely. All right, so the first question says, I don't think a public facing progress tracker will work for my class. All right, so the easiest way, kind of like when I was talking about the kids aren't using it when we were looking at that last one, sometimes you got to find one that'll work best for your class, because one of my classes does really well with the one that I post in Canvas that they can pull up on their own. And there's a couple of my classes that don't. So don't think of it as like your class, it won't work for your class. You just have to find a system that will work for your class. The physical trackers, and I know that is contingent upon you having the space to do so, because that was a big concern for me when I thought I wanted to do the interactive tracker was, okay, where can I build one? I don't really have the space for this. So you got to kind of dig into your own creative juices to kind of figure that part out if you don't really see the space most opportunely. But don't think of it as like it won't work for your class. You just have to find the right way. And I'm hoping while you viewing some of the ones like Sarah just went over, you can find one like, okay, my kids might, my students may very well like these right here. The game board would be great, particularly with younger children, because games are their life and stuff like that. We've seen some really cool things using Classcraft and stuff like that as well. So you just have to find a system that works best for your class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, it's also how's the rollout of that progress tracker, right? If it's just up there, like it's just going to be up there. I remember when I first rolled out, because I am one of those people that I did the virtual mentorship. I was elementary all subjects, and I jumped in all subjects right away, which I always tell mentees you can do. It's not necessarily always recommended. It is within your judgment about your capacity, but it was a lot. And so then because of that, I had like 4 different progress trackers. And at one time, I remember one of my babies was like, why are there so many boxes up there? Because I was using the check boxes on Google Sheets. I was like, oh, okay, I need to step back, because obviously I have not really explained what these boxes are. But once you really kind of explain it and get your kiddos into it, it can be a super powerful tool. And kiddos also get so excited. I mean, I've seen in my elementary schools, I know Tavia, I've seen it in high schoolers, and, across the MCP world, we've seen it, K to 12. When kiddos get to move their little piece or their box turns green because they've done it, or they move their little chip, like they are so proud and they are so excited because they're making progress, right? And that also goes back to our whole, we have the self-paced learning and we have that mastery-based grading, so that when they're making that progress, that means that they've mastered that lesson, right? And so not only are they moving forward, but they know that they can move forward, that they've mastered it, and that now they're going to be ready for that next lesson because they've mastered the one before, right? It's that building up that not only builds up our kiddos' knowledge, but also just builds up themselves as learners because they're finding a lot of success. I think as well, something that I didn't even think about until I started implementing one is how powerful a public-facing progress tracker can also be to all of my support teachers that collaborate with me. So when I had our ESL teachers come in, when we had our SPED teachers come in, when we had our instructional coaches come in, when we had our interventionists come in, that progress as a class, exactly what objective we were on, exactly where the kiddos were, which kiddo might need a little bit of extra help, which kiddo is rocking it and they need some enrichment, like that was just all there. And it was such an easy way to kind of collaborate about our students without having to find the time to collaborate. Because I don't know about y'all, but like we plan on collaborating, but then you get pulled for planning and you get pulled for planning, and then this, and then this, and the intercom goes off, and all of a sudden I'm just seeing my collaboration teacher in the hallway and I'm like, we're working on fractions. And then like, we got to keep on running. Right. And so it's such a powerful tool as well for teachers to collaborate or really around those students' success as well. All right. I think we're ready to move on to the second one.
Absolutely.
All right. I can start this one off if that's cool, Tavia.
Do your thing.
All right, so what should I put on my progress tracker and how do I make one? Let's tackle the first question first about like, what should you put on your progress tracker? And I feel like I'm kind of copping out with this answer, but whatever you want to put on your progress tracker. You definitely want to put the lessons, right? And how those kiddos are moving through that learning, but then that can take a lot of different views. Me personally, if I have like should do and aspire to do elements within a lesson, I don't typically put that on my progress tracker because it just creates too much. And I'm like a very minimalist sort of person. Other teachers love to go ahead and have those should do elements, have those aspire to do elements, have all of it there. Some people love to put all of the links for everything on their progress tracker. That's what I've started to do just because since I've been doing intervention this year, it's been difficult for me to necessarily have like a one class LMS. So that progress tracker has become like a hyperdoc of everything that kiddos need. Some people don't do that. Like, I think it's really, again, going back to what's going to best help your kiddos not only track their progress, but collaborate with one another. And that can look like so many different things depending on your content area and depending on your kiddos.
As far as what I put on my progress tracker, I think kids should definitely know what they're on, what should they be on, like the on pace lesson for that day. I think that's very important. And that's regardless if it's individual, like we were talking about the checklist. With the checklist that I do, it does have that target date so they can kind of see what the on pace lesson should be. With the public facing one, it says at the very top, the on pace lesson for today. So that's one thing that I think they should put, but I'm with Sarah completely when you say it's really your own world, however you want your progress tracker to look. And that's either way. You saw through the examples, we have all different types. And there are similarities, but we didn't see two that were exactly alike. So that guess goes into how do you make one? Again, what do you think looks cool? Like I look at some of these and think mine is absolutely the worst. I think it's absolutely boring because there are some really cool ones out there. And I'm like, where do they have time to create such creative progress trackers? So how do you make one? A lot of people use drawing, they use Google Slides, they're using Docs. We got some people who are really fancy and use stuff like Canva to create progress trackers. So it's just, you're really a squirrel in your own world, whatever you want to do and how you want it to look. And you don't have to get it right on the first try. I've changed my progress tracker 3 times on how I wanted it to look. So you try it, you make it, you try it, you don't like it, you scrap it and start over. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to say if I had $1, because I think it's probably only been 5 times, but if I had $1 for every time that my kiddos have come in, I've been like, guess what? I hated our last progress tracker because I did not like it. So I've made a totally new one, then I would probably have $5. And the kiddos are just like, okay, like, like it is what it is. And I think as well as Tavia, I can't remember what exactly you said that made me think of it, but like with what you put on the progress tracker, you can also put shout outs. You can also put positivity on your progress tracker. We have a lot of implementers that they'll put, a lesson superstar or a shout out section, like shout out to Tavia for getting on pace after being off pace for a week, or, shout out to Garrett for passing his mastery check. Shout out to Stefan and Thomas for collaborating together. Like that's such a positive place. And again, that goes back to that motivation. There were some days at the end of last year when like 5th grade was just creeping by because all my kiddos wanted to be in 6th grade so bad. And I wanted them to be in 6th grade so bad that we would make like a class goal of how many of us do we want to be on pace today? If I have, 12 out of 18 of you on pace, what's our class goal? Okay, our class goal is that we're going to have 14 on pace today. And if we get it, we'll get an extra 5 minutes of recess or something like that, And so that can be another way to build that culture, build that motivation. And again, kind of all link it back to this huge idea of progress, right? We're moving forward and we're moving forward in a very meaningful way. And we're also moving forward in a way that ensures that everybody's moving forward, right? Not just our pacing guide. In terms of making one, like Tavia said, like you can make one in so many different ways. And Tavia, I love how you're lifting up that, there's some that look gorgeous and some that don't, like you and I's, and that's totally fine. I say that about lesson slides all the time. Like I've had mentees send me the most gorgeous instructional videos. I had one the other day send me one, she had like intro music come in as she introduced the objective, and I was like, oh my gosh, like my intro music is my dog barking in the background because they see another dog on the sidewalk. Like that's my intro music. Or the microwave going off because I forgot the food that I microwaved in there. And that's okay. Like your kiddos aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for you. And so do what brings you joy. Maybe this is a creative outlet that you can make this gorgeous game board for. And like you do, like get some creative joy. Also, you might just want to go simple, like in our Edutopia video with the elementary classroom. They just have like one progress tracker all year and it's pieces of paper in different colors. It's like green, yellow, orange, red, something like that. and the kiddos have their name on a paper clip and they just move it through the different lessons. And so each unit, it starts with a green lesson and then it goes to an orange lesson, and then it goes to a red lesson. So they're able to kind of just like reuse that progress tracker all year long. But yeah, again, like customization and just making it work for you, right? The progress tracker is not something that needs to be unsustainable.
Stressful.
It needs to be something that's a tool. And I think that kind of goes right into our third question, Tavi, if you want to start us off on that.
I got you. I don't think I'll have time to update the projects tracker with the 1,000 other things I have to do during class. I've heard this a lot. I've heard this from mentees. I've seen this on the group. And I'll say this, it does take some finagling. You figure out the best system. For me, for instance, and this is another reason the interactive one can be kind of a privilege, because you're not the one that's going to be responsible for updating it. It puts it back on the kids and they're responsible for updating it. Now, you obviously want to have it in a space where you can kind of monitor the updating and make sure they're just not moving pens or coloring blocks in and they really haven't done the work. But it does free you up to not have to worry about it if they're updating it on their own. That's one thing. Another thing that I do is I have my iPad out as well. So a lot of times if they're most of my assignments that they turn in are really quick. So they'll hand it to me and I'll look at it real quick and can grade it, and I can update the progress tracker right then. Some stuff like the stuff that they do in Canvas that auto grades, that has to wait till planning to get updated. It won't get updated during class. So usually I don't worry so much about having to do it during class. The kids need you right then. The students need you right then. So just make them aware, okay, Sarah, I saw that you did 3 assignments today. Don't worry, when you come in tomorrow or the next time I see you, you'll see it on the progress tracker, what you've done today. So just kind of giving them that reassurance that it will get updated if you don't have the ability to update it right then. And usually, as long as I don't have a meeting that I'm running to for planning, that's the first thing I take care of before I do anything else in planning. I go ahead and update the progress tracker. Why? Because usually it doesn't take very long to go through and just kind of look and see who's done what for the day. So that's the least strenuous task that I can take care of in 10 to 15 minutes during my planning period. So don't feel obligated that you have to do it during class. You know, make the students aware, let them know that you know what they've accomplished, and just reassure them that it'll get updated at your earliest convenience.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing. I always tell kiddos that like it is my intention to update it throughout the class. I don't have a super cool iPad. Maybe I'll write a grant to get one because that sounds really great. But it is my intention to update throughout the class. But if I'm not able to update it through the class, I promise you it will be updated before the next class period, which is typically the next day. And just like you, typically during planning, or I'll take just like 10, 15 minutes when I first come in, and I'll just update it real quick. And I think also when you were saying, update at planning or night or earliest convenience, I remember when we were first starting with MCP, I got a Canvas message from one of my kiddos at like 2:00 in the morning, because bless him, he was probably up playing Fortnite or something. And he had messaged me, he was like, have you updated the progress tracker yet? It's not loading for me. And I was like, no, baby, I haven't. As I'm emailing back at like 6:30, like I'm doing it right now. I was not doing it at 2 a.m. But it's also just like precious. I mean, like that baby at 2 a.m. was thinking to himself, is my progress tracker updated? And like, and that's fabulous. I mean, like that is so great. And I think just having that expectation, and then kiddos understand that expectation, right? Like my kiddos have never been upset at me when I say, okay, baby, like I'm going to do that, I'm going to update it, because they know I'm good for it. And they know that also just because the progress tracker isn't updated doesn't mean that they can't move on. Because like you, Tavi, a lot of my stuff is either auto grading, or I'll be able to look it over in like 2-3 minutes really quick, especially for my mastery checks. So I can look it over, be like, yep, you got it. Go ahead and move on. And they know that they've moved on, just the progress tracker hasn't moved on with them, right? Like I got to go in and do something. And I think that's okay. It's okay to have those designated times. Also, I've had some mentees that have decided, like they're pulling small groups during class. They'll pull like 2 small groups, spend 10 minutes updating and checking stuff, pull 2 more small groups, right? You can also just have like that dedicated time throughout the time. I think this also goes back to our previous question of what do you have on the progress tracker? If you're finding that it's really difficult for you to keep up with updating the progress tracker, it might be good for you to think about, well, what's essential on my progress tracker, right? If I'm not able to update all the must do's, all the should do's, all the aspire to do's, and this and this and this, like what are the elements that they have to know that they're on pace, right? Maybe you're just updating when they've done that mastery check, right? To just show exactly what they're on that pace, kind of playing around with it. Because again, we also acknowledge, we have some MCEP educators, they're teaching 6 blocks, and that's 6 blocks of 30 kids. That's 180 kids. That's a lot. I teach around 60 kids, and I think that's a lot in my 3 blocks. And so I think, really, again, going back to customizing it so that way it's sustainable, and that way it's really able to be that powerful tool versus being like, let's do the progress tracker. All right. Any other thoughts before we wrap up, Tavia? We've had such a great conversation. Again, I'm so grateful to all of our Facebook community members that let us share out their progress trackers, because that was so cool and just so great to see the full breadth of them.
Absolutely. I enjoy looking at the different things that people actually post in Canvas, Lord, on Facebook. Because like I said, it gives you insight into kind of what you're doing. Like, oh, I never thought about doing it this way. Like one of my mentees just turned in the most phenomenal Canvas pages I had ever seen in my life. And I immediately emailed her when I sent her feedback. I was like, you have got to show me how you did it. That was amazing. So it's very, I really like how we can all kind of learn from each other. And even though we are mentors ourselves, we are still learning from our fellow, not our coworkers, but what's the
community
word? Our fellow people of the community. So
the other CO word.
So it's very dope. I really enjoy it.
Absolutely. So if you guys want to go ahead and explore more, check out the show notes for a progress tracker resource. Also, a heads up, for March 2022, we're going to be diving into lesson classification. So really looking into those must do, should do, aspire to do, mild, hot, spicy, so many other things that people call them. That's so cool. But really looking at that lesson classification and how that can play into self-pacing.
All right. So let's remember that the first Wednesday of each month, we'll host a Twitter chat to talk more about continuing learning. Make sure you come join us at 7 p.m. and that's Eastern Standard Time. If you have more questions, you want resources, you want to just widen your network, anything that your little heart can imagine. If you don't know what Twitter chats are, you're in a brave space because we are also still learning. So let's learn together. You can follow the Modern Classroom at Modern Class Proj, not project, that's PROJ, and that's the first Wednesday of each month.
All right, and that is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all that you do for your students and their families and their community, and we appreciate you.
All right, let's get out there and change the world one lesson at a time.